Select the next active link to continue. Diagnosis of PHEV is unique compared to conventional vehicles that are powered by internal combustion engines alone. A thorough understanding of electrical circuit operation and diagnostics is required. Never attempt repairs without the appropriate training. Select each button to learn more. When finished, select Next to continue. Do not attempt to service the vehicle unless the manufacturer's training requirements have been met. There are many unique diagnosis and service procedures that must be adhered to. Following service information, or SI, is critical. Failure to follow service information could lead to unintended major component damage that cannot be covered under a GM manufacturer warranty. Disable high voltage before working on or around any high voltage components, wires, cables, or harnesses. Use a Category 3 1000 volt digital multimeter when disabling high voltage. Service of the high voltage system may require the high voltage to be disabled. There are two ways to disable the high voltage system: using a scan tool or manually using a digital multimeter. Be sure to wear the required personal protective equipment, or PPE, when servicing the vehicle. If any of the disable procedure results are not within specification, refer to service information for the appropriate diagnostics and repair. Perform the high voltage disabling procedure prior to servicing any high voltage component or connection. Always refer to GM service information for correct procedures. To work safely on high voltage components, it is essential to receive proper training and to wear Class 0 insulation gloves and safety glasses. Coming in contact with high voltage and battery electric vehicles could cause serious bodily injury or even death. Battery cell voltage concerns may be caused by a group of cells that are actually failing, a volt sense wire concern, or a module fault. To determine if the cell group is actually faulty, the EL48571 pinout box and appropriate adapter cable will enable the technician to physically measure the battery group voltage. If the cells are found to be bad, the entire battery assembly will need to be replaced. If the test shows the battery cell group voltage proper, inspect the volt sense wires, and if good, replace the BECM. Warning: all of the BECM connectors must be removed in a particular order and reconnected in the opposite order to prevent internal damage to the module or an unrecoverable unbalanced battery voltage. Isolation can be defined simply as separation. The high voltage system has virtually no contact with the low voltage system or chassis of the vehicle. The high voltage battery and each high voltage device have both positive and negative cables, or in the case of the drive motors, 3 high voltage AC cables. The vehicle chassis is not used to supply a return path for high voltage at any time. A loss of isolation, or LOI, occurs when the positive or negative high voltage DC circuits, or any of the high voltage AC phase circuits, loses isolation to the vehicle chassis. A breakdown in the insulation could allow voltage to potentially jump to the low voltage system or the chassis without having a direct short between the two. The EL5772 insulation testing multimeter helps locate a loss of isolation. The meter supplies up to 1,000 volts at a low amperage to a high voltage circuit and measures the resistance to ground. GM requires the 500 volt scale to be utilized whenever testing GM high voltage cables or components for isolation concerns. The voltage supply is enough to jump an air gap, whereas a typical multimeter would not find a fault. In certain types of accidents, the energy stored in the drive motor battery needs to be reduced to a safer level. The battery service tool EL50332 and the appropriate adapter cables are used for this purpose by qualified personnel. This tool is sometimes called the battery depowering or load leveling tool. The battery sections cannot be replaced individually within this battery assembly. Therefore, the tool will not be used for balancing of sections. There are certain processes and procedures that must be followed when servicing the HV battery. Select each button to learn more about the process. When finished, select Next to continue. The vac and fill tool must be utilized to evacuate the air from the cooling system when performing service. Once the tool has filled the system, the scan tool must be used to activate the pump to circulate the coolant while the vac and fill maintains vacuum on the system. This method ensures as much air as possible is removed from the system. Warning: the coolant reservoir is located underneath the package shelf. Do not allow coolant to spill and run down the outside of the battery case. Use absorbent mats layered with shop rags to ensure any coolant escaping is caught. Failure to do so may cause internal damage and pack replacement, along with main cable replacement. This is not covered under a GM manufacturer warranty. The GE 46143 cooling system adapters provide the means to adapt a standard pressure tester or the vac and fill to the reservoir. Before securing the battery cover, it is important to test the coolant passages for leaks. Battery pack cooling passage test adapters are utilized to connect a pressure tester directly to the battery. Do not exceed 35 kilopascals or 5 pounds per square inch of pressure when testing. Some pressure testers incorporate a quick connector that will secure directly to the GE 5385 cooling passage adapter. If this type is not available, the GE 5389 quick connector must be used, along with the cap adapter from the vac and fill to connect to the GE 5385. Due to the weight of the battery pack, a set of lifting tools has been developed to hoist the battery up off the lift table using a suitable overhead crane or engine lift. The tools include GE 52200 propulsion systems lift, EL 51865 battery support fixture, EL 48264 battery pack lifting adapter, EL 48264-100 battery section lifting adapter, EL 51102 high voltage battery lift bar tilter, EL 51102-10 high voltage battery hanging bars and shackles, EL 51102-20 high voltage battery lift bar eye bolt kit, EL 51102-40 high voltage battery lift bar straps, and EL 51102-50 high voltage battery lift bar straps. This module covered the high-voltage energy storage systems in the latest plug-in hybrid electric vehicle from General Motors, the 2017 Cadillac CT6 PHEV. You should be able to identify characteristics and components of the drive motor battery assembly, recall components and operation of the battery's thermal management system, and recall diagnosis and service procedures, including special tools.